Hey, if you like the band Rainbow, I think you're going to enjoy what I have for you here today. You know, one of the things we do on this channel quite a bit is we go find old newspaper articles related to bands, new album releases, concert reviews, that kind of thing. And one of the things that's kind of interesting to find is little articles like this about Rainbow. And what they would do in a lot of these old newspapers is when a band was coming into town, they would write this little article about the group, you know, saying, okay, tonight at the such and such, this band's going to be performing. And they write this little article just kind of telling the history or just extra information about this group. And this is an example of that, where Rainbow apparently was going to be playing a concert here. Rainbow will perform at the Dallas Convention Center. And so this is Friday, August 13th, 1982, from the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. And it's just kind of interesting, again, reading these things because it just gives you a little view into kind of a diluted history of the group, tells you a little bit, some of the things. And every once in a while, there'll be some unique piece of information that pops out in these that would be kind of fun to listen to because they'd get these little interviews with people. This one's pretty short, but it's just kind of interesting because for me, Rainbow is just kind of an interesting band. They were a little bit like Deep Purple in the sense that they just had this turnover and the band just changed and morphed. And of course, Ritchie Blackmore, the band started because he left Deep Purple, started this group called Ritchie Blackmore's Rainbow. And he started it with Ronnie James Dio and other members of the band Elf, which is where Dio came from. And then Rainbow just kind of he had 3 albums with Ronnie James Dio as the singer, and then 1 album with Graham Bonnet as the singer, and then 3 albums with Lynn Turner as the singer, and that got us into the 80s at that point. And it was just, I actually liked stuff in each one of those phases of the group, but it was just kind of interesting looking back at the history and all the changes they made over the years in these different lineups. Okay, so I think you'll find this kind of interesting. So this is, again, it's the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, Friday, August 13th, 1982. And the title of the article is Blackmore on Top with Rainbow. And there, if you're watching rather than just listening to it, you can see a picture of the band right there. Of course, down the bottom left, there's Lynn Turner. Ritchie Blackmore is there, dead center. And then Roger Glover is the one in the kind of the top middle. And Roger Glover is an interesting character because he actually had been in Deep Purple with Ritchie Blackmore. And then he went off and did a lot of other things besides just playing bass guitar, primarily producing albums. So anyway, just kind of an important figure during that period of hard rock. So, okay, Blackmore on Top with Rainbow. When Ritchie Blackmore left the enormously successful Deep Purple in 1975, he formed a new hard rock aggregation called Blackmore's Rainbow. Actually, as you can see right here, I got this out so you could see what it originally looked like. It says Ritchie Blackmore's Rainbow. That's what it was originally called. That almost immediately began to duplicate the international acclaim achieved by his old band. Conspicuous by its reluctance to accept Blackmore's new band, though, was America, which had been a Deep Purple stronghold from the very beginning. Blackmore still was the ultimate guitar hero to many in this country, and early tours by Blackmore's Rainbow drew respectable crowds. But while he was racking up huge international hits with All Night Long, I Surrender, and Since You've Been Gone in other parts of the world, American fans remained lukewarm to the new band, with none of the group's first 6 albums going gold. So, and just by the way, All Night Long and Since You've Been Gone were both Graham Bonnet songs, and then I Surrender was a Lynn Turner when he was the singer. Let's see. However, that all seems to be changing. Blackmore's current album, Straight Between the Eyes, reached the U.S. top 30. The single Stone Cold hit the top 40, and now Blackmore is hitting the concert trail as a major headlining act once again. And that song, Stone Cold, was so absolutely, I loved it. I actually loved Lynn Turner's voice just in general, but that song Stone Cold was just awesome song. Okay. He'll make a local appearance Thursday night when his band, now officially named Rainbow, the Blackmore tag was dropped a few years ago, will perform at the Dallas Convention Center Arena on a bill that also will include hard rockers Riot and Saxon. And by the way, I have a whole bunch of albums by Riot and a bunch of albums by Saxon. I was never a big Saxon fan. I really wanted to be. I tried to be. Like I said, I bought their stuff, and it was good. Riot, on the other hand, not Quiet Riot, mind you. Riot was one of my favorite bands in the 80s. They were just awesome. Anyway, I loved Riot. Rainbow has gone through many personnel changes over the last 7 years, just as Deep Purple did during its 7 years with Blackmore at the helm. As a result, Blackmore has gained a reputation as being a hard man to get along with. Some have termed him dictatorial. However, his reputation as a red-hot guitar player is just as strong as ever. In fact, he won Best Guitarist honors in the most recent Reader's Poll of Sounds magazine and in the 1980 Melody Maker poll. Born in West Supermare in England, Blackmore first picked up his guitar 26 years ago when he was 11. His early influences were Duane Eddy, Les Paul, Django Reinhardt, Wes Montgomery, and Scotty Moore of the Elvis Presley Band, and Hank B. Marvin of the Shadows. After debuting professionally as a member of Screaming Lord Such as Savage's backup band, Blackmore played London recording sessions with Jimmy Page, backed Jerry Lee Lewis in concert dates, and appeared at the Star Club in Hamburg. And again, this is kind of interesting stuff, because if you didn't know this history, sometimes in these articles they go do these little deep dives and they say, here are some of his influences. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't realize before I saw this article all of his influences like that. So it's interesting seeing some of these things in some of these little articles. It was in Hamburg that Blackmore met drummer Ian Pace, and the two decided to form a new band. And after joining forces with keyboardist John Lord, they did just that. Deep Purple officially was born in February of 1968. Bassist Nick Simper and lead vocalist Rod Evans rounded up the lineup that quickly struck pay dirt with the top 5 American hit Hush, a remake of a Joe South Penn tune that had been a hit for Billy Joe Royal. Over the next 7 years, the ever-changing Purple lineup turned out such hard rock hits as Kentucky Woman, River Deep Mountain High, Woman from Tokyo, Highway Star, and Smoke on the Water. So, by the way, just so if you didn't understand this, Nick Simper and Rod Evans, although they were in that was Mark I of Deep Purple, when Mark II started, which is the classic lineup that everybody's familiar with, Nick Simper and Rod Evans left, and they were replaced by Roger Glover, the bassist I was talking about a second ago, and Ian Gillan as the singer. And then that became kind of what we know as the classic lineup. And then it was in 1973 that Ian Gillan, the vocalist, left the band. And then also Roger Glover left right after that. And then Deep Purple started making dramatic changes. I mean, bringing Glenn Hughes in, David Coverdale, and it wasn't long before the whole thing just kind of disappeared. Among their biggest selling albums was the classic Deep Purple in Rock. Blackmore finally left Deep Purple in 1975. The band broke up for good a year later and formed the first version of Rainbow by recruiting members of a New York band called Elf to fill out the lineup. Rainbow's first lead singer was Ronnie James Dio, who now handles lead chores for Black Sabbath. So, and this is in 1982, and that's all about to end, too, with Ronnie James Dio and Black Sabbath at this point. Of course, he had gone into Black Sabbath and done Heaven and Hell, and then had done Mob Rules, and then Live Evil, and then that kind of, that was what kind of wrapped them up. More than 10 members have come and gone from Rainbow since then, with Blackmore the only original member remaining, but the changes haven't hurt the group's sales, at least on an international basis. Prior to the release of Straight Between the Eyes, Rainbow had collected 18 gold albums and sold 6 million albums worldwide. The current version of the group includes bassist Roger Glover, the person we were talking about a minute ago that had originally been in Deep Purple, drummer Bob Rondinelli, who prior to this really no one had really ever heard of, lead singer Lynn Turner, who had actually been in a band called Fandango before this, but really no one really knew who he was. This is where we really started learning who he was, when he was in Rainbow, and keyboardist David Rosenthal, another one that was a total unknown at the time. And, Lynn Turner went on and did all kinds of stuff after this. And Bob Rondinelli and David Rosenthal, similarly, this was a kind of kicked off their careers. And I don't know that they ever really became super famous, but they did end up playing with a lot of other pretty well-known acts off and on over the years. Glover, who doubles as the band's producer, was a stalwart in Deep Purple after joining that group as Simper's replacement in 1970. Ron Donnelly was plucked from the New York club circuit, while Turner joined up after serving as lead singer for a group called Fandango. Yeah, like I was saying a second ago. Rosenthal is a Berklee School of Music graduate. Straight Between the Eyes is the second LP effort for the Blackmore, Glover, Ron Donnelly, Turner combination, while Rosenthal is making his group debut on the record. The album's title comes from a comment made by Jeff Beck to Blackmore in describing Jimi Hendrix's playing. "It hits you between the eyes," Beck said. And that's just what Blackmore has been trying to do with his music ever since. And anyway, that's the end of the article. It's one thing for us to go look at this now in, decades and decades later and understand the history, but it's another thing to look at it through the eyes of the people that were experiencing it at the time. And for me, one of the reasons I like reading these old newspaper articles and some of the things we bring out in these old magazines is just that. Because it lets you see. An example that I think is so much fun was a video we put out a week or two ago where David Lee Roth wrote an article, and in this article he is so confident that he's never going to leave Van Halen, and reading that and listening to everything he was saying, just knowing that that's not really how it worked out. It's fascinating reading it. And if you haven't seen that video and you like Van Halen, you need to go back and watch it. I don't remember what it's called, but it's a few videos back, a week or so back from when this one was released. And I find this stuff really, really interesting. Anyway, please follow the channel if you're not following it already. Like the video. Love to get your feedback. If you ever saw Rainbow in concert, what did you think of these albums? Which version of Rainbow did you like? I actually, even though I'm kind of partial to Dio, I loved the Joe Lynn Turner stuff. Matter of fact, I had Bent Out of Shape in high school. I used to listen to that album all the time. I thought it was great. The song Can't Let You Go and Street of Dreams, loved those songs. And that was all kind of as Rainbow was kind of coming to the end at that point, but I loved that stuff. So I really, really liked just each of the different versions of this group. I thought they were pretty awesome. So anyway, with that, have yourself a fantastic day.